Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, as always, along for the ride.
And before we get into the card, before we let Grant introduce the card, I do want to say that in this series of episodes we've been doing over the past couple of days, Grant and I decided that certain cards make sense to talk about only within certain decks. So, for example, Hirluin the Fair. Hirluin the Fair is only going to be run in an Outlands deck. It's the only way he makes sense. I mean, there may be some other corner cases, but the point is that it's unfair to kind of compare Hirluin to all the other heroes in the deck because he was designed just for an Outlands deck. And so we kind of learned our lesson. So we're taking some heroes and talking about heroes within a certain archetype, and we've decided to start off talking about Silvan heroes, or two in particular. And so which hero is this episode going to be about, Grant?
Today is going to be about the Dunlin Trap hero, Celeborn. He's 11 threat, 3 willpower, 2 attack, 2 defense, 4 hit points, leadership hero. So, David, what are your thoughts on Celeborn?
Well, within this type of deck, it's his it's response that really makes him amazing. When you're using Celeborn and you bring out an ally and it gets +1/+1
ally.
When you bring out a Sylvan ally, and it gets +1/+1/+1 to its will, attack, and defense. I mean, that is phenomenal. So what you've done with Celeborn is really blown up your cost curve, because now you're bringing out, for example, a Nath Guide that can quest for 2, has 2 attack and 1 defense now, and Celeborn doesn't have to exhaust to commit to the quest, so you can use him again. And with Galadriel's ability, the Nath Guide doesn't have to exhaust to commit to the quest. So now you still have all your characters ready, and you've committed 5 to the quest right off the rip. So Celeborn's ability within this Sylvan deck is part of what makes this deck go. So much so that I feel like, well, when I built the deck, I built him before Thranduil was released. And so you can run Galadriel, Celeborn, and then some third hero, maybe within Sphere.
Ogolad, Legolas.
Yeah, any of those. It doesn't. It probably some sort of maybe Haldir. But the point is that extra bonus really helps out, but it doesn't. I don't think that Celeborn is necessarily a go-to hero when you're building a deck outside of a Sylvan deck. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. Yeah, he's correctly costed. He's 11 threat for 11 stats, but that doesn't make him an auto include in a leadership deck. You could go to Koragorn and get good stuff, or so I think that Celeborn really, as his story is, in the books and the movies, he's the grease that helps all of this kind of move along. He's not integral, but for this deck type, he is definitely integral. I think that ability makes him super, super amazing. And then coupled with Galadriel's ability, it's wild. All those archers that we've had and we've used, the Galdon archer and they quest for nothing, except when you bring them into play during the planning phase. Now they quest for 1 and they don't exhaust, so you can get an extra one questing, 1 willpower to the quest. It's great. There's many times where that has been like, oh, might as well add him to the quest. Galleon, 0 cost ally. He's now questing for 2 the turn he comes into play. The Galadrim Weaver is questing for 2 when she comes into play. So, I mean, it's just, I mean, I could go down through the list of all the allies, but that extra thing, that extra bonus it gets, that the Sylvan gets, is amazing. And, I mean, we could then spend even more time talking about couple it with Thranduil. Now you're bringing in an ally during the combat phase, and now that ally gets an extra bonus during the combat phase when you weren't necessarily expecting it. You can tree people somebody in during the combat phase, or you can, and whatever it is, Celeborn's ability, read it one more time just so we're all clear on it.
Response. After a Sylvan ally enters play, that ally gets +1 will, attack, and defense until the end of the round.
Right, so it's just entering play. It's not played from your hand. So you tree people Haldir onto your side, and now he's questing for 3, attacking for 3, and defending for 3. He just got beefy for a round. And that's amazing. So anyways, I love Celeborn for what he does in this deck. Outside of the deck, I'm not so hot on him. What do you think?
I'd agree with everything you've said there. And instead of us going over everything, I would just like to point out the flavor text. The Lord of the Galadrim is accounted wisest of the elves of Middle-earth, and a giver of gifts beyond the power of kings. Galadriel, the Fellowship of the Ring. Now, I believe that flavor text is indicative of his response to give the Sylvan allies +1 to all their stats. A giver of gifts beyond that of kings. Now, if you look back at Dane gives +1 to willpower and attack to all dwarfs while he was ready. Now, Celeborn's ability allows him to give that as a response, and he gets an extra defense, and they get an extra defense. Yes, it's only for the round that they come into play, but that's indicative of the Sylvan bouncing in and out of play, rather than staying put like the dwarves.
Right, well, and that's why it's so great, is because you can bounce somebody in and out of play, and he gets that thing. I mean, you don't need it to be like Dane, where, the stalwart dwarves are just staying there and hopefully don't do anything. Attack quest. These guys are bouncing all over the place, slipping in and out of play all the time. That, I just think that's why it's so good.
I'd agree, and I'd also like to point out the artwork is phenomenal. Again, it's done by Magali. I'd agree with everything you've said about Celeborn. He's definitely not a go-to hero unless you're running Sylvans.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of, and I've been doing this since we decided that we were going to do this sort of like archetype packet, whatever you want to call it. I just don't know how Celeborn fits into other decks. Anyways, you're going to pick a different leadership hero to slot into a deck. Aragorn has one more one more hit point, and the stats are a little bit different. But I think that you're going to pick him instead of, because his ability is better for a more general deck or a different type of deck. Now, Celeborn does fit into many varieties of Sylvan decks. He doesn't have to fit into this bouncy Sylvan deck. He can fit into the Rossiel Sylvan deck. He can work in kind of a Noldor Sylvan mixed deck. So he has some versatility, but is not. I just think that he's really designed to be in a Sylvan deck as opposed to other sorts of heroes. So what do you think?
Ring him?
Yeah, I was going to say, should we ring this guy?
Yep.
Okay, so just so the audience knows, we, along with talking about this guy against the card pool and in the deck, we also decided that we were going to ring this guy within the card pool and within the deck, against the whole card pool and within the deck. It just makes sense because, again, like with Herluin the Fair, You have to run an Outlands deck with Hurlough in the Fair, but you don't need him in any other type of deck. So he's vital for that deck. So we learned our lesson is what we're trying to say. So Grant, you want to ring Celeborn?
Well, as part of the overall card pool, I'm not a fan of Celeborn. He's got great design. I love his ability, but his ability is indicative of a Silvan deck. You need to run some sort of Silvan with him. He can't fit into a normal deck, a generic deck like Theodred, Glowin, or Halbrad or Amarthiel, easier than them. You could pick one of them over Celeborn, whether that be you start with a lower threat or because they've got a better ability. However, inside a Silvan deck, and that's not just David's Silvan deck that we're here talking about, this is any Silvan deck, I'll rate them a 1. Because that ability to give +1 to all the Silvans that enter play on that turn is amazing.
Right, and it's whenever they enter play, too. And that's what is totally wild. So, what was your rating? What was your rating against the whole card pool?
8.
8. Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna have to agree wholeheartedly with you on both of those cases for exactly what you said. You know, like I think that he's the grease that makes the Silvans not so squishy because of, you know, that bonus that he gives, and that's vital for a lot of these things. But I think within, you know, against the whole card pool, he just doesn't make sense to use as just a random hero to insert in a deck. Some heroes do that. Some heroes are general, but this guy is definitely not a general. So I'll stick with you. I'll say an 8, and then I'll say a 1 for within the deck. So join us next time as Grant stays just along for the ride, and I start off the next show with, hey, everybody. So have a great day. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username Card Talk 2018. Or you can search the RSS feed, cardtalk2018.libsyn.org, for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at Card Talk 2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.